I've started taking a look at the cylinder head from the Royal Enfield 250 Continental GT, and I've only just decoked the combustion chamber, cleaned that up a little and had the inlet valve out, and already I've seen a few things of interest. Obviously the gasket face there, that black mark tells me that the head gasket was blowing. I didn't notice it blowing externally when I was riding the bike and running the engine, but it obviously has been losing a bit of compression in that area, and it's possibly been escaping into that stud hole. And even if it wasn't coming up and out of the stud hole, it may well have been going down and blowing across the base gasket or something, but it's certainly been losing some compression there, so I'll be taking special care to thoroughly anneal the copper head gasket and just put a light smear of well seal on both sides of it before I put that back together and hopefully sort that out. Another thing was, when I removed the valve spring, you can probably just see on the outer spring, if I get the inner one out, the inner one's it doesn't matter which way up that goes, but the outer springs of this type, you might notice that there's coils more close to each other at one end than the other. And whenever you get close coils at one end of the valve spring, you put that end closest to the cylinder head, or the valve if you like, and this one was in upside down. The reason for putting them that way up is because obviously the close coils at the one end make up more weight of spring material than the coils spaced further apart at the other end. So with them being down at the cylinder head end, the end that does most of the moving up and down when the valve is opened and closed is actually lighter than this end. If you put it that way up, you've got more reciprocating weight, so always put the closer coils to the stationary end of the spring if you like, and that's the way they're meant to be. It would also appear that someone's either been using an additive in the petrol or possibly used some sort of lining material in the fiberglass tank, because you've also got this rather unpleasant sort of sticky goo on the back of the inlet valve, and it's all in the port there as well. Get my torch on, we might see in there, look at that. For something that's supposedly only done a couple of 100 miles, that's in a hell of a state. And I've seen things like that happen before, due to tank liners dissolving in the petrol and coming through and then forming a glue-like substance. I worked on a pre-war Royal Enfield 500 Model J, which suffered from it so badly that it actually glued the inlet valve open, and when I went to start it the next time around, the valve actually stuck and did damage to the push rod. So I'll be taking great care to clean that lot up. Quick grinding of the valves, because I know the compression felt reasonable, so I don't think that they're going to be too bad actually, but I'll clean them up, polish them and give them a good lapping in, try and clean the ports out a little bit, and then we should be ready to refit the cylinder head. I've got the exhaust push rod from the Continental GT 250 in the chuck of the lathe here, and I've got the knurling machine I've had there on it. Whether the camera will pick it up or not, but I've actually knurled the end a little, so it'll make it a tighter fit for this adjuster that has come loose on it to fit again. But also the knurling will allow me to apply compound, like a sort of Loctite or bearing fitting type compound on it as well, and it'll be caught in little grooves or knurls that have been made, and generally sort of help this thing stick on again, because this actually just, well, would have just fallen off, it was that loose. So now I've got it so that it's going to be a light sort of tap on fit, and I'll get my compound to stick it and smear it over the end of the push rod there, knock this adjuster back on, and that'll hold it. And that's a race proven fix, that I've done it on the race bikes before now, so that'll stop that flopping and rattling around. Make the job a good one, as some people say. Right, well, I got the top end back together on this 250 Royal Enfield Continental GT now, after a strip down to see if I could find anything wrong inside the engine that might be robbing it of power. and I've already discussed a few things I found, and I mentioned when I was working on the cylinder head that one of the valve springs, the outer valve springs, was upside down. At that point I'd only taken one valve out, but when I took the other one out, the spring on that was upside down as well. So I put all sorts of little things like that right, decoked the cylinder head, decoked and polished the valves, ground them in again, cleaned a lot of goo out that was stuck on the back of the inlet valve that I think has come from some sort of resin based tank sealant or something. I've seen it happen before on other bikes. Anyway, I've mentioned all that and gone over that. So now I'm going to try my luck. I'm just going to switch on and hopefully start it up and see if there's any difference. Another thing that this has done from time to time, well, it hasn't done it that time, is sometimes the float needle sticks, which is another sign of something dissolving in the fuel. Right, I'm going to put the camera down now and hopefully climb up there and start it up, and we'll have a look and see and hear what it runs like if all goes to plan. I've still got the outer cover off the engine because I haven't finished dealing with the alternator rotor issues yet. Certainly got a bit wet something there, unless that's just the oil that I put all over the components when I put them back together. Let's run it for a little bit and see. There we are, it's clearing now. Grab a bit on the tick over there while it warms up a little. Well, I know everything's good in the crank, big end, main bearings, bore, piston and head departments now. So if there's any tightness left in this engine, it's either going to be from the alternator if I can't, I'm sure I'll get the rotor off and create a bit of clearance for it. And if still no joy, I'll probably have a look at, I don't know, in the primary side and possibly even at the camshaft. The next thing I'll do then is I'll try and sort something out with the alternator, and when I'm happy with that, get the engine cover on and make it all rideable and go and try it out again, I guess. So rather than bore everybody with it, I'm going to run this for another 10 minutes or so and see how things go, and then get onto that alternator job. Right, well I've just started the engine up again after refitting the alternator, rotor and stator. I've had the rotor off. I put it in the lathe and just given it a light skim, and now it's not rubbing on the stator. And I would say that things sound much more like they should. certainly the engine seems much more willing to respond to the throttle, and it doesn't sound so tight and laboured. So what I'm going to do next, I'll just run it for another 5 or 10 minutes. The smoke we saw earlier cleared, the engine had actually wet sumped, and I've noticed that these 250s can do that when you take the rocker oil feed pipe off for some reason. I don't know whether it allows air back into the pipe work and the passageways, and somehow the oil manages to find its way to the crankcase, but it was showing right at the bottom of the dipstick when I started it, and it's now right up to the high mark on it again. And I haven't added any, it's just pumped it back where it needs to be, and the smoke has settled down. But I'm quite encouraged by the way that sounds. So perhaps my next instalment, with a bit of luck, might be a chat before we go for a ride on it.